Good afternoon, everybody, and a very warm welcome to this live stream with me once again, 320 Sim Pilot, for another of our flights. Today, as you've seen, we're going to fly up the west coast of Italy from here in Palermo up to Genoa, somewhere I've used in the past for a circling tutorial, so we may see if we can get a circling approach into Genoa in at the end of the flight. Thank you all for coming along. Please, as usual, do let me know how the audio is going. I'm still fiddling with the settings on Streamlabs. Hopefully, I've improved the quality slightly since last time. I know we had a few issues on that, so hopefully it'll work a bit smoother for us this time. I am, however, having some trouble with VATSIM. We've lost connection a couple of times, so do bear with me if that happens. Here we are in our rather lovely Alitalia 321 livery, strangely registered in Ireland, I believe, but here we are with, I think, another of our colleagues next to us in the Jet2 flight, one of our viewers. So thank you very much for coming along, Dougal. Let's have a quick look in the chat. I've put in the slightly different route in the top of the chat, but you can type in !flight plan and it will tell you the route today, I hope. We're still experimenting as we go with Streamlabs. So who's joined us today? A lot of the regulars, thank you for coming. Ariel F, good to see you. Richard V, regular, of course. Antango Delta. Flats 40, another new regular, thank you for coming along. Fluky 86, Lizzo 5, Dougal, of course. Marcin Rotkiewicz is back again, thank you very much. Hello to Warsaw, Ian Morris, Pilot Peely. It's great to see you guys. Smooth flying. And of course, Captain Matteo Chewy, who's been very active in the Discord. Let's have a look through. Swappy S as well. Great. Thank you for joining. Sorry if I missed anyone. Quite a few comments today. So that's great. Thank you all for coming along. Voice audio is excellent. Great, Dougal. I'm glad that is working out. And Captain Matteo, yes, to your hometown, Genova. Captain Matteo Chewy mentioned that in the Discord, so I thought it would be fun to have a go. As we did it in one of our videos before, it was quite popular as well in my channel update video. I just flew an approach into there, and people seemed to quite like it. Right. Unicom, yes, that's a good point, Dougal. It's time to go on to 1228. So we are on VATSIM. As I said, we have been disconnected a couple of times. So today we may have to just go to Unicom and see what happens. There's no controller at either end, I don't think. These are quite small regional airports. 1228, here we go. And we'll listen out to what's going on. So the story so far, well, as you can see, we're here on stand. This is a slightly older Alitalia livery, I believe. We've still got the little black nose and these nice line down the windows, which I always enjoy, as well as rather fantastic printing on the wings, which I do like the effort that some airlines go to when they print onto there. So looking very smart from here, and it should be a fairly straightforward flight, but the flight plan's not quite what you'd expect. So we're going to head up, we're going to go east after departure, and I'll show you this on our charts maps. And instead of flying straight north to Genova across the sea, we're going to go slightly in towards Naples, then north Rome, and eventually up and into Genova. Right, let's get ourselves started. So let's have a look at some of the setup to give you guys some context. Of course, we're sitting here with the external power on. Performance-wise, we're quite heavy. I imagine this is probably quite a popular route, I'm not sure, but I know there's quite a high population in northern Italy, and maybe they've headed south for a nice break down by the sea in Palermo. So a fair bit of luggage on board as well. 9.7 tons of fuel loaded in. If we look at our flight plan, 8.7 was required. I've added a ton. We already had 800 extra for the contingency fuel with an alternative Zurich. The reason is if we're going to fly a circling approach and I mess it up, then it'd be nice to have the fuel to come back around and try it again. So I've added a little bit extra there. Cruising, flight level 340 for this flight. Pretty standard, actually. We keep cruising at 340, I think. A low Costinex 8. In terms of the setup, and please let me know how air traffic control is. If the other audio voices are too loud, do let me know. We've, of course, done our data. Our init A, Palermo to Genova. Alitalia 215 is our call sign, alternative Zurich, Costinex 8, cruising at flight level 340. Need to load in the winds, that's what I haven't done. And let's see. Yeah, so we had this issue before. This seems to be quite common. So what I might do once we get up into the cruise is enter that. Flight plan wise, here we go. Plan, zoom out a bit and scroll through. So starting here in Palermo, north initially to the Rosas, we've got some hills behind us. And then keep going sort of northeast to Sierra Oscar Romeo. Then we can go north a bit, Tango Echo Alpha. And then this route up here, it's up the coast, Sovan, near to Rome Fiumicino that will be, and then we head up to Genova. The arrival in here, there's a bit of discontinuity. We'll check that as we head away en route. Secondary, it's just going to be a copy of the active. I'm not sure if there is an emergency turn procedure here. Depends on the airline as well, how they'll plan it. But the SID seems to be pretty safe for us. In it B-wise, I've loaded up 70.7 tons, 0 fuel weight. We've got our 30 CG, pretty standard with our 9.7 tons of fuel. An extra 2.2, so plenty of fuel when we arrive is the current prediction. Finally then, performance. What I'm going to do is get that loaded in. As you guys know, flap 1, I'm still not convinced about the performance figures otherwise, but quite a heavy one. So no shift from runway 07. Flaps will be set to 1. Flex temperature of 35. So it needs a bit of power today. I think there could even be a bit of a tailwind. And we've got V1 of 160, VR 160, and V2 163. Transition altitude of 5,000 feet. We're expecting to go straight up to flight level 80. As there's still no air traffic control, let me just check that that is the case. No, we just got to center higher up. Then I'm going to confirm that at flight level 80. Right. Noise abatement comes up a lot, but this time no noise abatement that I'm going to fly. We're going to just use the standard 1,500 feet thrust reduction, effectively at sea level here. Engine out acceleration, I'd probably put that up to 1,000. Wouldn't expect to be accelerating at 400 feet above the water necessarily. Be quite unusual if you had an engine failure especially. Okay, so let's get some APU going. 3 seconds. As we found out last time, and I kept trying over and over again and get that started up. I'll just jump into the comments. Andrew Hunt as well, thank you for coming along. Andrew Hunt's asking, had a look at flight deck to sim yesterday. Yes, absolutely. I think he was flying the Airbus yesterday. You consider tackling his plane on a stream at some point? I've considered it, so it's a thought. I don't know if you guys want to watch me struggle through a 737 or not. I'm sure many of you are probably much more adept at the 737 than I am. But certainly it's always interesting to have a look at these other aeroplanes. So it would be interesting. Flaps 40, ATC is good, excellent. Feels unusual to see Alitalia livery as IE engines, although it's my favourite engine for the 321. Yeah, I agree. I like the IE engines, although, yeah, that's a good point. I think this is set up automatically, though, so I'm surprised it chose the IE engines for this one. Flaps 40, I'm transitioning to the A320 today from the 737. Excellent, good luck. I hope you enjoy it. And the Airbus is a fantastic machine. I really like it, and I think this Toliss product is really good, a really good representation of it, so you should enjoy it. Geordie asking about trimmable horizontal stabilizer here. No, I don't enter that, and I don't know many airlines that do. It's basically a reminder. I think it may alert you if you have it set too far out. So it's a good question. Some checklists do include it, and there's nothing wrong with entering it or not. But I tend to take it from the fuel prediction page. Airlines will have their own procedures for their takeoff CG, which you'll then just set on the stabilizer. Excellent weather, absolutely, Dougal. So it should be good for our flight up. Hopefully we'll get good views of the coast as we go. Dougal McTavish 320 sim pilot, what's your alt? Are you asking I'm going up to flight level 80 is the plan. I'll be cruising at 340 for the flight. Right, let's get this show on the road. So I've been working with Matteo on this checklist, and it's really good. I'm really impressed with it. It's not really a checklist, I suppose. This is more of a procedure. So if anyone is learning the Airbus, like Flaps 40, this can be really good. So running through these will help you get the airplane set up to where you want. I tend to sort of skip to this one. So time to call the pushback tug. First of all, we need to work out exactly where we are on this airport. So we'll look at the chart. Here's the weather, cab okay, light easterly breeze. So we're taking off from runway 07, temperature 23, and we have the QNH of 1010. Here we are then. So it's going to be pushback and head down. I'm imagining Tango all the way becomes Echo, having crossed the runway, and then we'll take off on 07. And here's an overview of that departure. Effectively, we're going to head straight out and then left turn up to Rosas 5 Romeo. Here is the actual SID. As you can see, I couldn't spot any particular peculiarities in terms of, well, let's see, actually, there's altitude restrictions, but I don't think there were any performance restrictions in terms of speed. And we can see here 250, there's a limit in there, but it just wants us to 250 because that's the speed limit flag. aside from that, off we go. So pretty simple SID. That's the sort of thing we like, just a slight left turn. More important is going to be a case of being very careful on that taxi. Let's in fact bring up the airport parking stands. Airport and parking stands. I do find it frustrating the way these charts are laid out, having to swap between the two. So I think we'll get ourselves out onto Tango. So we're on, I believe, 211. We'll push back. So let's face west onto Romeo and then get ourselves out via Lima. That seems pretty reasonable. So plug in, better push back, pre-plan. And we're at 211. Good, I got that right. And we're going to face west. I'll broadcast that onto, I guess, Unicom. And do tell me if I'm getting that wrong. Should I be broadcasting on the ground frequency or onto Unicom? I'm not entirely sure. Okay, so that looks like a good plan. Let's accept that.
Ground to cockpit, plan acknowledged. Call me through the menu when you are ready.
My goodness, that was loud. I hope it wasn't too loud for you guys as well. So yeah, as you can see, Streamlabs is active. So thank you, Fly24, for trying it out. It's simply those two commands basically at the moment. It's just to see what we can get it to do. It should also alert us if anyone subscribes while we're going, which is just a bit of fun. I think it missed a few last time, so I was hoping to get that sorted for this one, but I'm not sure how it ended up missing them, to be honest with you. There we go. Okay, so we've done that. No ATC to give on Unicom. Excellent. Thank you guys. So initial altitude down, transponder code. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm going to leave that at 2000 just for just conspicuity. I guess people can just pick it up. What we will do to make sure we get TCAS, which would be even more important in this situation, is we will make sure that's set to on. Now, in real life, I wouldn't expect to have to do that. I'm slightly surprised that it doesn't appear automatically, but there we go. Great. So let's get ready to go. Before we can do that, let's get the AP bleed on. Ground power away. Ground power gone, and get these doors closed. Wonder how hot it reached in the cabin that time. That'd be quite impressive. Yeah, 37. Right, you'd be in a lot of trouble. You'd have definitely had someone calling you up about that sooner. Here we go. I can hear someone else. Taking off from 07. Smooth line, just subscribed. Thank you very much. So that worked that time. Excellent. Hopefully we can keep that up and running. I'm sorry for the graphic. I don't actually know how to change that yet. So that's what we have. Adrian Burke, hello. To you, thank you very much for joining us. I'm glad you're enjoying them. And yeah, the recent tutorials I've been putting up have been covering the new, or the new topic, I suppose, for the channel of the different flight control laws and downgrades available in the Toliss, which is what I quite like about this product. It does have quite a few of those modelled in it, which is quite an important part of Airbus flying. So there you go. Now, why haven't I done that? Start pushback.
Ground in cockpit, tow is driving up.
So tow truck's arriving, doors are closed, AP bleeds on. So high, so good. Thank you very much for coming along. Smooth flying, yes, of course. I know you were here, so I'm glad that worked for this one. Do comment have a sending video delay? Yeah, I'm aware there is some delay, and I'm not entirely sure how to sort it out. I'm worried about the quality dropping if I try and reduce the latency too much. So we'll see how we go. I'm hoping the quality looks better. Let me know if anyone thinks there's any difference from last time. All I did was up the bitrate a bit, so I'm not entirely sure if it makes much difference. Okay, so let's get ready to go. So we'll make sure that flight door's closed, make sure the thrust levers are at idle, windows are all closed up.
Okay, all doors and hatches are closed. Ready to
signs
connect.
On. Beacon can definitely go on. They're connecting the tug downstairs. We'll broadcast to ATC and then we'll just start the pushback. Excellent. Swappy S saying about the overlay taking up a bit of space. Yeah, okay, thank you. That's a good point. So I'll consider a less obtrusive way to set that up. It's should be pretty manageable to do. Absolutely. Thanks for that. Lewis Robbins, watching the Air France 447. Yeah, absolutely. A very nasty incident. Thomas Mortimer, is it common at all to land auto thrust off, or is it like company procedures or personal
Tow
preference?
connected and bypass pin inserted. Release parking brake.
Okay, let me just get going and then I'll answer that one. So let's broadcast onto Unicom 1228. Alitalia 215, pushing from stand 211 to face west. And brakes released, done and done.
Starting pushback, and you may start engines.
Clock running, and as usual we get our fantastic wobbling alarmingly close to the terminal. I see. So yeah, it's more difficult for you guys. So if anyone wants to fly along with us, which is of course absolutely brilliant. Oh, sorry, hopefully we just miss you there, Dougal. Yeah, looks like we got away with it. Yeah, the delay can be challenging. So that's a good point. I'll have to see if there's a way to improve that situation. I have to do a bit of research. Yeah, it's amazing how the pushback driving always starts in there for me. I'm not sure what I do wrong. Let's make sure we stay here. Okay, so let's get those engines started. Wow, dear. I do continuously have that trouble. So we've got pressure at the start valves down here. I'm going to do both engines today. So engine 2, master switch on, start the timer. And this is where this procedure is quite good. It tells you what to do. So you put it to ignition and then SDPH. You're going to check that there's some pressure there. Now I can see the line's gone open, so it's putting air in, and N2 is rotating. It'll do that for about 30 seconds on the IAE engines. It's quicker on the CFM engines. And I actually think it cheats a bit. We see the EGT drop because that's pumping out all the hot air that was left in the engine. If your airplane was cold, of course, you wouldn't necessarily see that. There's the fuel, and as soon as we see fuel going in, I want to see the EGT rising, so I know that it's actually igniting and not just fuel sitting in the engine. And it's working, which is great. And then everything accelerates, so we can tell we haven't got a hung start or anything like that. Start valve is closed already. That's not really doing anything now. The engine's just stabilizing on its own. So we've done that. Engine 2, stable, and then engine 1. And that's I've enabled the co-pilot option that I hadn't got enabled last time I used this checklist, so it's quite good. It ticks through things as it sees you've done it, so very clever. Okay, available message, starting engine 1. And that shouldn't happen. It should do the same thing, so it would just motor open the valve. It won't be using ignition just yet. That will come later. There we go. We finally made it with quite an exciting pushback to our point. Yeah, so Thomas Mortimer, landing with the auto thrust on, it would be airline SOPs as to whether you can fly around without auto thrust or not. The Airbus is a bit different from the Boeing. It's quite common in the Airbus to leave it on. I'd say much more common. On the 737, I understand, I don't know this.
Operation complete. Go ahead and set the parking brake.
Parking brake is set, they can disconnect. I understand
Disconnecting tow. Stand by.
that the 737 and Boeing planes in general, people tend to disconnect the auto thrust when they're flying manually, but in the Airbus, that's much less common. Not to say it's impossible or anything like that, but it just seems to be the way it is. That's now available. Back to norm. And this is where I have a slight difference with that. Although it seems to be adjusted now. Let's have a look. So AP bleed, they can disconnect. AP bleed can go off. AP master can go off. And that's going to be it, except I need to set the trim wheel. We're taking up at 30.3, so hardly moves at all, hardly at all. Not going to make much difference that, but there we go, 30.3. Speed brakes then, going to armed, check that that's at 0.
Tow is disconnected and bypass pin has been removed. Hand signal on the right. We'll see you next time and have a safe flight.
And we can disconnect the pushback crew. It seems to have lost the engine mode selector back to norm then from this section. Curious. Okay. There goes our ground tug. Dougal patiently waiting there for us to get out of the way. I'm glad you're all having the same trouble with better pushback. It's always quite severe. And there's our ground crew wave in the afternoon sun. So let's get ourselves underway before we run out of sunlight. Some people are saying we need to delete better pushback and re-download it. Yeah, maybe that will work. Overlay colour is changing as well as size from Dougal. Okay, message received. Thanks for that. Right. The pink is, the pink is part of the brand. I can understand that size. Perhaps it's it's causing a bit of issues with people watching. So that's, it's good to know. Okay, so taxi routing. We are going to go along Romeo, and then it's going to be a bit of a left, right, and then we're going to take Lima. So let's get the taxi lights on. And do we finish that after start? Obviously 2-2. So this is where they'd get us to do our flight controls or stationary, but we'll do it while we're moving. That's fine. Okay. Check it's all clear around, definitely, because this would be a very easy part to mess up. Right, I do apologise, guys. The reason I have this right-hand seat set up is for later in the flight for the circling, but I can't use Avitab in the right-hand seat, so I'm trying to remember to use the right keys to get back here. Okay, brakes released. Might need a little bit of thrust. We're crawling forwards. Just take a little bit of N1 to get our brake check in. Checking down here. Brakes work. A bit aggressive, but there we go. That's down at 0. Okay, I think it's a good time to get the flight controls checked. It's full left, full right, neutral, full down, full up, neutral, and as ever, lots of space around. Actually, no, we'll wait till we get past Dougal so we don't cause any incidents. And there we go again. The wrong seat, I do apologise.
Palermo traffic, Channel 322, pushing back from 210 to face west.
Oh yes, I should announce what I'm doing. Well, thank you, Dougal, for for reminding me. Italia 215, taxiing via Romeo, Lima, Tango to holding point 07. Okay, now we make our left turn here. 9 knots, that's fine. Other pilot would do their flight controls. Then we'll make sure we stop before we cross out of the runway just to check no one's landing on it. Right, let's see. We've got our speeds correctly loaded in with climb and nav armed. 1 FD2, 8,000. We'll make that a flight level when we get up in the air. Let me get around here and hopefully I can improve the frame rate in a second. So we're going to go left on Lima, I believe. Yep. So that's out here. Let's enjoy a bit of an outside view. It's probably about as fast as you'd want to take a turn like this. Keep it slow. I like the way X-Plane shows the smoke squealing off the brakes and the tyres as you tear around too fast. Lovely afternoon here in Palermo. I'm sure this will be a very nice day to go flying here. Okay. Once we're on this taxiway, I can hopefully improve the frame rate for you guys. Let me know if that works. Now, what I've just done to try and improve the frame rate may also mean that Streamlabs doesn't bring up the subscriber notification. So I hope it does, but we'll see if it does. Any more comments? Apologies if I've missed anything. Swap yes, they like the colour. Okay, good. I'm glad. I'm glad we got people enjoying it as well. People have enjoyed. Adrian Burke's been recording the voice for Dutch Better Pushback. That's great. Yeah, I've always been impressed with how the Better Pushback has different different voices for all over the world. The delay is 20 seconds. You can change how it's optimized. Thanks for that. Yeah, I may consider doing that if the delay is becoming a bother for people. Henrik K. That's a big question, so I'll have to see if I can get back to that later to remind me, and maybe someone else in the chat can help you out with that. Update for Vulcan on Better Pushback. Maybe that's going to help it. Yeah, that would be good. The stream overlay is being done by Fly Live Studio. Hot pink, the colour is called. Yeah, it could be or magenta if we feel like being very, very mature about it and insisting that it's magenta. Which is obviously a favourite colour of airliners. It's always used. You've got it here. In the Airbus, it typically means managed speed. So it's when you give control to the aeroplane is when you get that magenta colour. There's a 5 likes how the live dot on the thumbnails is always on something. Excellent. I know that a lot of effort goes into finding placement for that dot, so I'm glad it's not lost on everyone. Okay, so here we go. About to reach an active runway. I would normally expect to talk to a traffic control or get clearance. But what I'm going to do is say the other pilot's done their bits. So we'll set that to TARA. We will have that to max. Oh, there we go. And run the takeoff config test. Got flight plan on that side, performance on that side. And what I'm going to do is ding the cabin now. So when we get over the other side, we're ready to go. So let's see what we've got. Other possible checks while taxiing. Gross weight comparison. Yeah. Is it still what we expect? 80 tons? Absolutely. Pitch trim, V speeds, fuel on board. We've got our 9.7 bleeds and packs. Let's do another pack off takeoff this time, but we'll do that later. It's not uncommon to taxi with one pack off, I suppose. It reduces the demand on the engines. On the Neo aircraft, it's not the same. The Neo aircraft don't save fuel by using one pack. It's a different setup. But we're on both engines, so that will work for us here. So that's all checked. And then there'll be the other checklist. This checklist will become available in the Discord. It is done by the two authors originally, and then Matteo's worked hard at adjusting it slightly for the 321 and for us as well. So it's not quite finished yet, but it's on the way. Right, cabin status, ATC, weather radar. Yeah, I think we can put the weather radar on now. There's no one around, so I have that on multi and auto. System 1 on, and predicted wind shear on. Set that to weather and turbulence, and put, they say 5 degrees, yeah, something positive. Just to look into the sky. Let's face it, today I'm not actually expecting to see much on there. Strobe lights we'll do later. So these bits I tend to do as a flow as we reach the runway. So we'll get rid of that now. Okay. So we are no longer using that. We are on this chart, and we're going to cross runway 20. Alitalia 215 crossing runway 20 via Tango. And that, I think that's the problem with a better pushback. I don't know if you guys just have it in the Toliss, but I just released the brakes and it did that swerve. I wonder if it's something related to the Toliss more than the better pushback, but we'll see. Reaching the runway, get the other pilots put the strobe lights on. In auto, they'll come on when we get into the air, I believe, as long as the slats are out. So they won't shine as we enter the runways, obviously. We should get the RAS call out as well. I would expect that shortly. So it's going to shout at me as I reach the runway. That's the whole point of the system. Let's see if it does.
Approaching 20.
There we go. Absolutely. Let's exploit our position in the simulator to look around. Nothing there. Nothing there. Excellent. And there's Dougal. Oh, sorry, Dougal. I must be holding you up by now, especially if you've got plans later. Okay, let's get ourselves to Echo. I think we'll just prepare ourselves to go, actually. So we'll leave those on. We'll get those on. Get the takeoff light on. Chime the cabin again, just in case they weren't. We've got one pack off, so that's all done. And that's going to be done, so we'll close that for now. If you were doing a pack off takeoff when the temperature was this hot, it's probably unusual. You might be tempted to leave both packs on for departure just to keep the cabin cool, because it's amazing how quickly it heats up with 150, 60 people on board. All right, here we go. Alitalia 215 entering runway 07 and taking off on the Rosas departure to the northeast, climbing flight level 80. Okay. Right, so that's done. Take off the other pack now. I wouldn't do it any earlier than that. We'll give ourselves all the runway we can.
07.
Approaching 07. I would hope so too. You can see it on here. That looks right. Quite a nice mountain here next to Palermo. I like that. It's a bit fast, 15 knots. People at the back would feel that, although at least they would hopefully be secured by now. I've got this scenery glitch, which is a bit frustrating. I'll talk about that as we go. Oh dear, we missed that turn. That's from going too fast. Okay, right. Let's get ourselves underway. So I'm going to start the chrono. Both packs are off. Half side stick forward. 50% N1.
Canex 322, holding short, runway 07.
2 clicks forwards. Man, flex 35 with SRS, the order thrusters arms. And away we go, off to Genoa. 80 to 100 knots, releasing that forward pressure on the side stick. quite a powerful takeoff, flex 35, so that's pretty good thrust. You'd really feel that. That'd be quite a kick in the back when you set that power.
Connect 32, entering runway 07.
And there's our V1 and rotates. Oh, keep it coming. As we said last time, you get a bit of a dead spot as you reach through 10 degrees. Positive climb, gear coming up, nav mode is engaged. Pretty much straight ahead on this departure. But today we're going to remember the packs. That's going to be the big achievement. We can bring the packs online. We do it as soon as we've got the... move this slightly up. We can do it once we've got the power back at thrust, so it'd be for the pilot monitoring to do. So, sorry, the thrust to climb. You don't do it until then because the performance would be calculated depending on if you had the packs on or off. It's not just a preference thing at the time, you have to calculate it. Okay, we're into climb mode. Engines back to the climb gate and we get thrust climb. Auto thrust therefore has engaged.
Connect 32, taking off runway 07 to the east.
And autopilot 1 coming online. And is now back 1. And then we wait 10 seconds while it pressurizes. And even then you'd feel your ears pop. So if you take off with an Airbus and you feel your ears popping shortly after takeoff, that's probably been done with the packs off. If you feel your ears popping as you go down the runway, it was probably done with the packs on because the outflow valve closes as you take off. So sometimes the pressure sort of spikes a little bit like that. Back 2 can come online. We're going to get auto retraction as we go through 210 knots. And above the green S, flaps can come to 0. And that's something this checklist it does a great job of the noise abatement here. I like that. Thrust to climb, flaps retract. It says above the orange flap bug. Actually, it's above those green ones as we've seen. And in my takeoff tutorial, I talk about that a little more, whether you're doing a flap 3 takeoff and so on. So it's actually above those green ones. Not the orange is just the limit for the next stage that you haven't set up. It's more for approach. Right, let's set standard as we're going up to flight level 80, and we're actually going to go all the way up to 340, so no point wasting time. The magic of flying around freely in VATSIM. As soon as the flaps are at 0, I can disarm that and get rid of those. They're not doing anything anymore. They're tucked away in the nose well. It will. I got an ATC. Then we have the checklist. We're already on standard. And there's a 10,000 feet procedure. Excellent. Here we go. Right, let's have a quick look. Sorry, I missed quite a few things on here. I'm quite a way behind. Goodness, I may not be able to make it back through all of the comments, so apologies for that. I talked to a Toliss A321 pilot today, says Marcin Rotkiewicz, and he told me he always lands with the auto thrust off because he prefers to practice his skills. There you go. So it is not banned by any means. It's certainly in the Boeings. I think it's encouraged to disconnect the auto thrust, but I do not know. A Boeing pilot will know more on that. On the Airbus, it's quite normal not to, but certainly there are some situations where you might have to. You can actually dispatch without auto thrust, so if it's broken on your aeroplane or it misbehaves, then you might have to fly the whole flight without it anyway, so something to be kept in mind. Flight 24, such good graphics, yeah, they seem to be working out so far. I think the quality of the stream looks okay to me at this end. Alipay2 says, another regular, thanks for coming along again. How's the 321's climb performance in the real world? It seems more sluggish. Well, it would be a bit more sluggish. It's got that smaller wing, but it does have higher rated engines. It's not terrible. I'd say the Toliss probably slightly exaggerates, but they were trying to update it to stop that. More to the point is that at these heavier weights, we can see that the maximum ceiling is more likely to be lower. So the 319, you don't tend to have this maximum ceiling become an issue, but in the 321 you do with that small wing. So here we go, 361, so 340. I have to go to an even flight level for this flight. Optimum 338, so that's where I'm going to go. 319 would probably go up a bit higher. So that's part of it. But yeah, it's probably slightly worse once you're up in the cruise. Okay, there we go. Through 10,000 feet. Let's get rid of those landing lights. Off and retracted. Seatbelt signs can go off. Lovely and smooth air. Airport button, absolutely. And let's wind up that range so we can actually see something. I can see Dougal behind us, excellent, although he's outpacing us already in his 737, so there's no surprise there. I think they have a slightly better climb performance. I know they can go up to flight level, I believe, 410. Any Boeing 737 pilots will be able to update us better on that. Alternate flight plan. Yeah, so what this is talking about is now you'd go into the secondary and we can just copy that over. Clear out any RadNav we have. Well, again, I've done an RNAV. One of these days I'll do a traditional SID and we'll tune it in properly and see how we would do that. So that's done. Alternate flight plan. ERS ADF. Looked at that and we have fuel on board looking good. It should, I'm expecting it to say pretty reasonable amount of fuel. I mean, we were expecting to arrive with in the region of a good couple of tons extra. So plus final reserve, probably maybe 4 tons at least. But curiously, it seems to have vanished. I'm not entirely sure why. Interesting. Have I missed out something here? Has it lost some weight? No. Have we lost the init? No. Ah, yes, we need to put that in. I don't know why we've lost that. That's curious. That's the first time I've seen that. If we look at the fuel burn, we've burnt 1 ton. If we add that to 8.6, that would be 9.6. Yeah, so we know that that's about right. So I'm not expecting any leaks or anything like that. And off we go. Let's get rid of Palermo's charts. And I'll just come back through here. Swap yes, I think you should get Wizard Lua scripts for Fly with Lua. It helps optimizing gain to give improved frame rates. Okay, yeah, interesting. If there's anything like that, any good tips, always welcome. Thank you for that. I've learned so much from you guys already as we go through. Smooth Flying says you need to keep my subscriptions private turned off in the Google private settings for the subscriber notification to work. There you go. So I must have missed that. Captain Matteo Chewy is learning the Rotate MD-80. Yes, so X-Plane fans out there will have seen that there's a sale going on the X-Plane org store every now and then. And I think they had the Rotate MD-80 on for a good price yesterday. That was mentioned in the Discord. So yeah, thanks for that. If anyone gets any good tips on those, feel free to put them in the Discord because they keep changing them every few hours, it seems. What else have we got here? Dougal didn't happen with me with the Zebo. Okay, that's interesting then. So the swerve is X-Plane related. Good to know. Yeah, Streamlabs will. I think it's going to chip in every 10 minutes of that commands just to let you know what they're. Oh, Avio Man, good to see you. Thanks for coming along. Flying into my home country. Oh, excellent. Are you another Italian in the group? Good to see you. What else have we got here? Do you have a quick reference checklist outside or an emergency and a normal one? Fly 24. So. No, but there is a checklist available, which again will be in the Discord once we have it all put together, which has just been a little bit of fun to work on. Jonathan Barber, hi, thank you for coming along. Sorry it's taking me so long to get through to these comments, but yeah, thank you for watching. Mazen Hasuna, again, thank you for coming. I noticed flaps track automatically at S speed. Is this usually how it is? If so, why? So Mazen, no, they only retract the flaps above 210 knots on takeoff. So what I should do is show you guys a bit more clearly what I'm doing at that point. I've done that mistake before. As we accelerate on takeoff when we're climbing, if we pass through 210 knots, the airplane will be in flap 1 plus F. So you have slats, which is the 1, and the F, a bit of flap out. As you go through 210 knots, it will retract the flaps, and that allows the maximum speed with the flaps out. It's slightly higher. I think it should be on this placard here. So there you go, 1 is 230, 1 plus F is 215. So as you pass through 210, it will bring in the flaps and it increases that speed. And that can help on a really heavy takeoff in a 321. That's when you'd expect to use that feature. How are we doing? Are we still connected to VATSIM? Looks like we are. Still on Unicom. Where has Dougal gone? Can't see him around. And here we go. Not sure why there's a water change there. That's interesting. Hopefully we'll get nearer the coast. The visibility is not as good as I imagined it would be for this. Liam, thanks for coming along. Just a little bit late, but no problem at all. We've still got most of the flight to go. Glenn Chambers, does the performance calculator take worn engines into account, older engines performing less? No. The performance calculators, well, it depends on the airline, I imagine, but typically the Airbus will have on the it'll be on the data aircraft status page. It has this performance limit, which as pilots we're not going to fiddle with, but the engines will be monitored and tested and so on, and adapted to different performance rates to make sure that they perform in an even way. So typically, no, we assume that the engines will all perform on a specific setting at the same thrust as each other, depending on the conditions, obviously. But yeah, great question. To turn a switch on, you pull it backwards for Airbus, but Boeing is the opposite way. Yeah, that's a great point, Flaps 40. It's one of the hardest things, that these are all the wrong way. If you come from another airliner, typically forwards would be on and backwards would be off, but for the Airbus we put it forwards to turn it off. I don't know how it ended up like that. I really don't know. Quite a lot of ergonomic design went into the Airbus, I'm sure. They did a good job with lots of things, but maybe they decided that was the best way for that. You get used to it though, obviously, so it's not too bad after a while. Thomas Mortimer points out that we've got and Flight 24 like a homesick angel. Yeah, absolutely, we're soaring away now. Ian Morris, fuel prediction also reads 0 for destination, and also I don't know what's happened here. We do have a discontinuity. That is a good point, Thomas Mortimer. But I can show you where that is. It's part of the arrival, and I didn't want to fiddle with it just yet because they don't effectively link up. So what I might do is, let's clear it out and then we can just change the arrival later. Is that going to fix it? In the real airplane, it's smarter than that. Okay. Yeah, 6 tons, we've got plenty of fuel. In the real airplane, it can adjust that. It would work out a rough fuel to get between the 2 points in sort of an assumption. So that's interesting. Yeah, you wouldn't expect it to go to all dashes, but good spot. Thank you, guys. Excellent. Dougal's still there. Good. Topping out at 320. Okay, perfect. Georgia can you take off with that low temp 39? Yeah, absolutely. It's different. If you're used to the Toliss A319, the flex temperatures are different in that. So it's no surprise. You can go up to 79, depending on the conditions, usually in a 319, and it's lower. It's in the 40s for the 321. It's to do with the engine rating. So these need to put out more thrust as we take off, obviously, in the heavier aeroplane. So yeah, it does seem different. So there are some differences between the 19 and 20 and 21. The 20 is a flexing, 69 would be the typical maximum. Ian Morris, do you monitor use EPR at all, as you mentioned N1 most of the time? That's a good question. I suppose the reality is we should, and a lot of the limits are written in EPR and N1. If you look at the thrust, if I'm flying manual thrust, it moves these little blue donuts here on the engine display, and it moves them on the EPR range. So you can set those to a specific EPR, but you can't set them to a specific N1. But EPR is a very interesting metric. Engine pressure ratio is what it is. It's relatively rare. You've got 2 sensors, or I'm sure there's more than 2. I don't know if they're modelled in the... oh, there we go. We can see Dougal behind us, climbed up much better than we have. There's a little probe here on the engine, one on each side, and there'll be another one further in the engine, and it takes the pressure as you go into the engine and the pressure coming out the back. And obviously the higher that pressure is, the more thrust you're getting out of the engine. The higher the difference is. But it's quite sensitive, so you see these numbers flicker, and in flight it does happen like that as well, and it's quite hard to judge what each part is, whereas N1 is sort of a known thing. So if I'm doing a manual thrust on final approach, I'll typically look for the N1s that I'm going to set and adjust the thrust accordingly. It's just one of those things with the CFM or the Neo aircraft. If you're using N1 in those aircraft, N1 is written up here, then even easier. You just use those and you can put the donuts. I would say, though, that it's quite hard to look in and actually set the donut to an exact thrust setting you want. That's not that common, even if you're using N1. You just sort of move the thrust levers very gently. You can see as well when you're doing manual thrust, it's a very small range. That's all you've got from idle to climb thrust. It's just a few centimetres. So, oh, there we go. That's no good. Let's put those back. There we go. Look at that speed wash off straight away. Engine spooling up. See if we can avoid leveling off there. And that shows you the lag in these engines. They take quite a while to get accelerating from idle. A question did come up, I think it was in the Discord, somebody asked, why is the flight idle a higher speed than the ground idle? So if you're flying and you put the engines to idle, they'll go at a faster speed than on the ground. And my understanding is one of the main reasons would be that if you had the engines back at ground idle, so really low RPMs, which would be a low percentage N1, it would take a long time to get them up and running. They're quite big things, and it's just there's lag in the way jet engines work. So yeah, that would certainly be a part of it. I don't know as well. There could be issues stabilizing the fuel flow and so on in the air compared to on the ground. I'm not sure. Smooth Flying's asking, Dougal, did you do a rocket climb or is the A321 slow? Yeah, no, I would expect a 737 to embarrass us in the climb. It's just, it can go a bit higher. Flight 24, are the detents hard in real life? Yeah, the detents are pretty good actually. They're pretty standard, so even on older airplanes they don't tend to feel softer or harder depending on the airplane. They're all pretty much the same, and you could certainly move between these gates without having to look. You'd know when you've reached. So from toga to flex would be it's a very solid clunk into place. It's really quite good. I know Boeing pilots obviously aren't a fan of the fact that they don't move with the auto thrust, but yeah, that's sadly the way it is. But no, you know when you hit a gate, it's pretty good for that. Right, how are we doing? Let's go to ARC. I mean, we really are crawling up. It's going to take us a while to get to 340. How far away is that? We're going to Sierra Oscar Romeo. There's LIRN, so that's Naples as we're heading up. I was hoping to see the coast, but it looks like the weather is turning against us. Because of the way I've got it set up, we can enjoy a right side wing view unusually. Never before seen on one of these streams. I do like the painted wings. Alitalia written there. A few other airlines have done that in the past. First Choice, they used to have nice big colourful patterns. I don't know if any of you remember them. Or Air 2000, they might have been at the time when they had those paintings on the wings, but that's quite fun. Thomas Mortimer, having watched your direct law video, what's the reason why the Airbus can't use auto trim during landing? Is it like a safety reason because of certain things not working? That's a great question. That's a really good question, and I'm afraid you've reached past my my knowledge on that topic. You'd have to ask Airbus. It's just an almost uniform rule that from alternate law, when you put the gear down, you end up in direct law. Obviously the airplane is downgraded to some extent, so perhaps it's just a way of making sure the control stays with the pilot and not with a computer or anything like that if it's missing data. In the videos I showed you for direct law and alternate law, I actually achieved it by turning off two ADR computers, so the airplane's working with just one. I'd imagine that would certainly be one reason why I would think that they would not want it having too much control. It could be that the way the airplane does the flare as well is very different in normal law. It does all sorts of things. As you cross the threshold, it freezes the trim and then starts introducing a nose down input, and I don't know if that's possible in alternate law, so perhaps that's why it reverts to direct, to just give the pilot control. If you haven't seen those videos, they're up. There's 3 parts now. So what is the Airbus? Part 1, 2 and 3. We've got normal law, alternate law and direct law. If you don't know what they are, normal law is what we're sitting in today. We've got these green equal signs, and that's how the Airbus is designed to be, and that's what you'd hope to see whenever you're flying around. And then you've got alternate law, which is when you've had some failures that might put you into alternate law. And then you've got direct law. There's a few issues with those, which we talk about in the videos, including stalling and things like that. And they're pretty good representations in the Toliss. I'm really impressed. I haven't had many simulators that are quite so good at it. I haven't tried other Airbuses in X-Plane though, so there may be other ones out there that do it. But yeah, the alternate law and direct law, that's what they achieve. Someone did ask quite a good question. They said in direct law, where you have to trim the Airbus, how do you trim? Do you have any buttons on the side stick like you would a conventional airliner or a 737? Sadly, no. There is nothing on here. The side stick doesn't include any options, so we'll have a look at the side stick once we get up into the cruise. Nearly there, crawling up. Yeah, that's probably a normal rate of climb. Where's Dougal? Probably overtaking us. Oh, some excellent graphics there. And there's the coast. We're heading towards it, getting a bit closer now. Oh, there he is. Oh, he's leveled off, didn't he? That's right. I should look behind me. 320 sim pilot, what's your Mach number? If I go to performance page, we can find out in the cruise section. Manage speed, we're going to cruise at decimal 76. That's the plan, Dougal. If you're coming on behind us, decimal 76, which is probably quite slow for a 737. I don't know for sure. We can go to about 0.8, maybe. We'll see. But we'll just leave it in managed at 76. Masen Hasuna, Captain, when do we use idle reverse versus full reverse? Well, that'll be an airline procedure again. I'm sorry if I always answer with that, but for me, if I'm just guessing in X-plane, it's going to be a case of if I'm landing into a runway that's sort of below, in a 321, below sort of 2,200 meters, I'll consider maximum reverse, probably maybe 2,000 meters. But the thing with reverse thrust is it's not quite as simple as it seems. If you're landing medium auto brake up here, medium onto a dry runway, you're really going to see not much benefit at all from the reverse, because by the time you've even got it in, the brakes have warmed up. But there could be days where you have to. If it's a tailwind, something like that, then you'll need to just use everything to help slow the aeroplane down. Sometimes you might use reverse on a long runway just to keep the brakes cool. So if you're landing and it's 35 degrees outside and you're landing with a tailwind, but it's a 4-kilometer runway, you could still really heat up the brakes, and that could make it difficult for your turnaround. So you might consider using maximum reverse with low auto brake. Not very efficient, quite noisy, but it will help keep the brakes cool. So it could be for safety the better way forwards. There's Mach and outstar. And here we go. The cruise procedure pops up, transponder to below, which we will do because we'll also still see Dougal behind us there. Down to below. So there's no rule for when you would definitely use it. Basically, you need a performance calculator to tell you if you absolutely have to do maximum reverse or not. Any sort of contamination though, so thinking snow, heavy, wet runways in general, in fact, you'd certainly be considering using maximum reverse. It becomes much more important. So although on a dry runway with medium auto brake, you wouldn't see much benefit from it, landing onto an icy runway, or a slushy runway, you can't necessarily land on icy runways, but if there's lots of snow on it or anything that causes it to be more slippery, we've got very specific calculators, and we can work out with all the numbers that Airbus have given us how long we need on the runway to slow down. But the difference in using reverse in that case will be considerable. It makes a big difference on contaminated, wet and slippery runways. Contamination is something, and winter operations is something I've been meaning to make a video about. It's somewhere in the plan. There's quite a few topics to come. An ILS tutorial has been requested a few times. I'm sure lots of you guys are well aware of how to do an ILS in the Airbus, but it's something that perhaps some new joiners to the channel or people new to the Airbus might be interested in. So that's one thing that's going to be done. Still planning on doing a circuits video as well, so touch and goes and circuits, because they're quite fun in the Airbus. Something quite different, and a few big gotchas that you've got to get right. 7.6 is good for Dougal, excellent. Georgia, there are a few realistic free sound packs for CFM or IE if you want to give a try. That's interesting. Yeah, I don't have any issue with the Toliss sounds. I think they're pretty good, but I understand people are big fans of some of these other sound packs, so I must give them a try at some point and see how they work. Flight 24, E-jets are pretty quick too. There you go. Interesting. I don't know what the E-jets cruise at. They look very fast. Very nice. Very modern machines. I think they're on sale on the X-Plane store. Or they were earlier today anyway. That was discussed on the Discord. Yeah, if you want a cheap version of the E-jet. But full disclaimer, I've never tried one of those models in X-Plane, so I don't know what quality the product is like. Let's have a quick look then. So we would also, once we get up here, we make sure we get those seatbelt signs off. Something that would definitely happen is you'd run a big fuel check, compare your waypoint, see how much fuel you're expecting to have as you go along. We'll do a systems check, starting with the engines. As I've said before, some of these numbers I've never seen before in my life, and others are missing. So there's a few differences here, but it can just be spec of the aircraft. Again, 7,100 feet. That's quite normal for this lower cruising altitude. Generator 1 typically has a higher load. And tends to, the IDGs get fuel passed around them and heat exchangers and so on. So that becomes important on cold days because it warms up your fuel if it's getting too cold. but sadly we don't get a fuel temperature on here. Something I'd quite like to see. I don't know if there's any reason it's not there. I don't know if the Zibo 737 can tell you. So that would be interesting. Hydraulics all looking good. These can vary. Blue tends to stay about the same, but green and yellow, depending on where your controls are, could be higher on the green, lower on the yellow at this stage in flight would be quite normal. And then it sort of settles down when you reconfigure and land. Typically the gear causes that. Fuel is balanced. That's something you certainly do want to check here. We've got our 3.7 in each side, burnt to 2.2, so that adds up. It's also one of the big differences between the 319 and the 320. If any of you are used to the 319, we don't have outer tanks on the 321. It just one big tank that feeds the engine on its side, and we have this cross feed available to us if we need it. There's no way to transfer fuel from one tank to the other in the Airbus, though. Well, there is, but it's quite a complex procedure. It's not typically something we do. So if you wanted to reduce the fuel in one tank, you would have to use the cross feed procedure to get it through to the other engine. In other aircraft, it's possible just to move a switch and pump it between the two. The center tank here is obviously off. It just runs automatically as well. We don't need to do too much maintenance on that. APU off, powers desupplied, pumping in nice cold air. So the hot air comes in. Sometimes this valve can be sticky, but effectively that comes in, and then it uses that as a trimmer to adjust how the air going into the cabin is cooled or heated. Doors are all armed. Wheels are all looking good, nice and cool. Flight controls, yeah, all neutral as you'd expect. Excellent. Right, probably not too far from our top of descent. It does sneak up on us on these streams. Although I must say this is one of our longer flights. I'm quite pleased. We actually have some space. Let's see if I can see the top of descent. It's a shame though. I was really hoping that we could look out the side and get a better view of Italy. So there we go, coming around, lots of nice mountains. In general, I find Italy has really nice scenery to be flying over. It's a little bit disappointing. I should have checked more carefully. So where are we approaching? So we've just gone over Naples, excellent, and past Pompeii and so on. And as we head north, we'll eventually reach Rome. And yeah, there's LIRF. I think it's up there. Excellent. Right, what else is going on with you guys? SB is landing the 319, much different to the 321. I float it badly or pulled back too late and slam into the runway, or I lose lift and all three wheels slam down at once. Is that the 321 you're talking about there, or the 319? There is a difference. In my landing tutorial video, I think I touched on it, but one day I'll have to do a full-on comparison. Basically, the Airbus technique is the same for all three, but in the 321, you need to have put some input on the side stick by 30 feet before it, basically, in order to have your flare starting at 30 feet. If you wait for it to say 30 on the radio altimeter and then you start pulling back on the side stick, what you'll find is that you'll reach 20 feet before the nose starts coming up. So actually 321, you probably have to think a little bit higher. Somewhere shortly after 50 feet you need to start doing something just to get the rate of descent under control. It's hard to judge as well. It's something that you just have to practice looking out to the end of the runway. We're not trying to get it perfectly smooth. We just want to get that nose up and reduce that rate of descent, because it is easy to have it go get the nose slightly too high and then you just float along the runway. I've done it in some of my streams as well even. It's something you have to get used to. I think the Toliss sometimes uses slightly high approach speeds as well. So we'll see what it does today, because I would expect to approach, probably the pitch would be somewhere, I don't know, between certainly 1 or 2 degrees and 5 degrees. And I've seen some approaches where it's down at 0 degrees, which tells me there's probably a bit too much energy in the aeroplane. This is correct. So VLS is truly 144, then VAP will be 149. But these numbers can be slightly off depending if the weights are wrong in the computers and so on. In the Neo aircraft, it calculates these slightly differently, so they tend to be more accurate. But certainly, yes, there's a chance to float if you've got a high approach speed. And also flaring at that point, it all matters. It's very important that your approach is stable before that. So if you're slightly high and you're using a slightly higher rate of descent as you cross the threshold of the runway, then yeah, you're going to have to adjust that flare to make it slightly earlier. If you're slightly low and you've shallowed off slightly, then you need to do it a little bit later. Something that you learn to adjust as you go. Also, don't idle the engines. You don't have to idle the engines exactly at 30 feet. They just need to be idled by touchdown. So they have to be obviously by touchdown, otherwise you'll land and the engines will spool up, and that would be very bad. So you need them idle by touchdown, but you don't. If you think you've got a lot of sink as you're flaring, you might choose to wait just a second. So that does happen. Typically it's somewhere around 30, 20, 10, somewhere there you'd idle them. Interestingly, the Airbus, when it auto lands, will idle the engines at 10 feet right out, but it does it automatically. Or I think actually maybe it's 20 feet, but it would just tell you to retard the thrust levers, but it's already idled the thrust anyway as it auto lands. So yes, looking forward to the circuits video. Excellent. Yep, that's my plan to do in the future. Quite complicated, so I'll have to work on that soon. Thomas Mortimer, will you be doing detailed demonstrations of the systems and what happens during failures of them? Hydraulics, electrics, cabin pressurization, etc. Yes, that's the plan. You guys will know the Toliss has this fantastic tool in here, fault scenarios, and we can add faults as we go. Now, I've tried out a few of these, some of the ones that the more famous Airbus ones, and they aren't all exactly as I'd expect, but there's some pretty good, pretty representative things in here. And there's the more simple ones like air conditioning. We can have a pack fail, things like that, and deal with the ECAM. So that is definitely a plan. Let's reset that. Another thing I've considered is maybe having random faults on with quite a high factor, so that we make sure we get something during the stream. That could be quite fun just to see how we handle that. But I've avoided doing that so far because we haven't really talked about it in any tutorials, so it could be a little bit confusing just to sort of sit here and run through a failure in the Airbus without actually having talked about what we're really looking for, what we're trying to do. Dougal says, shame about the cloud, the author is standing here. Yeah, it is a shame, I agree. I was hoping for much better views for our little tour. There we go, there's some nice scenery below. This is default X-plane. I must get ortho. I'm way behind on the scenery. I keep trying my best to work it out and get it into the X-plane. I bet it is really stunning. So Dougal, if you get any good screenshots, do put them up in the Discord, and we'll have a look at them later and see what what I was missing out on. But yeah, the scenery in Italy is really spectacular. You've got these high terrain as you run up through the spine of the country. Really, it's really nice. We're quite far inland actually, slightly more than I thought. Can we see coast to coast? Or is that the coast over there? Yeah, I think we can. Yeah, excellent. I love it. Flying straight into the sun as well. Ian Morris, much better. On a 16-inch screen and 27-inch ones. Yep, I'm not sure what you're talking about, but yep, that would be the way forwards. Fly 24, does the fuel auto balance? If we look on here, it doesn't. No, it just runs. So you may get slight imbalances. If we do a single engine taxi, then engine 1 we'd have taxied out on would have 100 kilos or so less, and that will just stay like that. So no auto balancing. I don't know if the Embraer or the 737 do. I can't imagine the 737 does. It seems to have far less automatic features than the Airbus, but I imagine the Embraer probably does do something clever like that. So no. And you can find, you could have an older engine and a newer engine fitted to the same airplane. So to have this, where all the numbers match perfectly, is probably quite rare. You'd get similar N1s. It will keep the N1s the same because that is important. But you might find that the fuel flow is higher on one and the EGT is a bit lower on one, that sort of thing. So you could end up just naturally with a slight imbalance as the engines burn. You're allowed quite a large imbalance. The Airbus can actually land with one tank full of fuel and the other tank empty. It won't too negatively affect the flight characteristics of the airplane. Not that you'd want to do that, because obviously that would be a very bad situation to have got into. But the airplane can handle the imbalance. It's quite good. There are limits for takeoff though, so we don't want it to get too far out of balance on the ground. You don't want to start your flight like that, put it that way. And it will give you a warning as well if it thinks it's getting too silly. Liz F5 wants us to divert to Rome. Well, where are we sitting? Where's Rome now? I've got myself a bit lost in my own head. There's LIRF, I believe. Is that F yet? So we'll look at our charts for our progress maps. Yeah, there we go, Roma. So why can't I see Ciampino? What's the code for Ciampino? It's gone completely out of my head. Is it LIRA? Someone else will know in the chat. with an engine failure with procedures, that would be great. Yeah, that would certainly be a good video. Engine failure on takeoff is something I've been meaning to do a video on. A lot of skill in terms of hand flying needs to be learnt when you do engine failures on takeoff. So I'll be very interested to see how it is using the Toliss. I've tried a few, and obviously the rudder is the big issue. The rudder becomes so important if you have an engine failure on takeoff, and it's something that we practice a lot, obviously, to make sure we have that built into us so we know how to handle it. And it's really hard in the X-plane without pedals to get that right, because using the joystick, which is, I'm assuming, what most of you guys are using, is because that's what I'm using. It's a little bit difficult to get the right amount in, but we'll certainly have a go. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. Captain Matteo Chewy, faults can be dangerous on the Toliss. First time I tried a random one, I got a complete loss of all electrical systems. Right, okay, there you go. I suppose it does say random, so if it lives up to that promise, it'll be very interesting to see what we get. Yeah, what would be possible to see. SB, no problem at all. Thanks for watching. ASXP giving me more cloud than you. Oh dear. So probably my X-plane is, as you guys know, pretty default. I get very nervous of adjusting anything on X-plane because of these streams, and I've had a few issues. Oh, we can see. I think that would be Dougal back there. There he is, following us along. Excellent. Yeah, I get nervous of adjusting too many settings and having instabilities in it, because we've already had a few incidents, and we hopefully won't have any today, but we'll see. But it does happen. Thomas Timor is saying the rats did not help you, to Chewy, when he's talking about failures. The rat will only deploy automatically. It will do that if you lose electrical power to both of these buses, so AC1 and AC2, and then it will come online here, and you get a little section in here. And the Toliss does simulate that, but the ECAM that Toliss gives you is slightly different. But yeah, the rat would drop out. But in that case, there's a few other failures that can give you a surprisingly large loss of screens and so on that aren't actually the same thing. So it's quite interesting, all the different electrical faults. It's very, very complicated electrical aeroplane, this. I mean, if you look at this screen, it would look quite simple. Okay, we've got batteries, we've got AC, because obviously an airplane like this will have AC and DC. And we've got our so DC bus bars, AC bus bars, through generators feeding them, and then the essential one in the middle there. But you can believe that there is a whole load more going on than we get to see. And here's our nice, simple electrical panel on the overhead. So there's a little bus tie that connects the two sides. The two AC generators, external power and APU can feed in. There's the AC essential feed, commercial and galley. I mean, it all looks so simple. The IDGs are separate from they're what help the engine convert motion into the generators. But then you look on the back panel, and we'll see all of the circuit breakers. There are loads and loads and loads. So yeah, I know they are connected to the bus bars, of course, but there'll be lots of other ways, and they're all up here as well. I'm sure lots of clever things going on. Oh, no auto balancing on the Embraer either. That's interesting, Don. Thanks for that. Yeah, it's I didn't know. I don't know if there's any plane that does auto balance. I imagine some long haul aircraft with more complex fuel systems where they'll have fuel tanks in the tail may do things like that. The Airbus does some clever things. If we have the center tank here, and we could also have if we look on our fuel panel, these auxiliary center tanks. If you've got those installed, they're very automatic. You don't need to do anything to that. It will just choose when it's going to supply the fuel based on time from the engine starting and takeoff and all this sort of thing. Even this center tank here is done automatically. Even if it had fuel in it, we just wouldn't do anything. It would just drain itself. Lyra Lizzo5 says, yeah, so Lyra is Ciampino. Yeah, very good. Captain Matteo, I did not try to troubleshoot it. Too dramatic. Yeah, it's interesting. You may have had the emergency electrical config, which would be quite nasty to get. The AC essential failure is mind-boggling when you're trying to fly. Quite a number of systems go off. Yeah, these are some big level electrical failures you guys are talking about. 320 SimPilot on the maps page on the Navi tab. Press the gear symbol. There you can enable airports, etc. to show a map. Ah, okay. Oh, look at that. That would have been easy, wouldn't it? And there's LIRF for Bacino. Thanks for that. Yeah, excellent. And we've cruised past them now, going over these lakes. So we're probably getting close actually. Probably time to start thinking about my arrival instead of chatting away too much. So let's check the weather and then we'll see what sort of approach we can do into Genoa. Close that. LIMJ, Genoa. No weather information available. There we go. Okay, better. So we got a light easterly wind. So perfect. This is going to be a classic tailwind down the ILS scenario. So if we had performance, the easiest way to approach this would be simply to fly in and do an ILS and land with a tailwind. But we're not going to do that today. We are going to do the circling. So let me just check what arrival we're expecting. The Calmo 2 Charlie. I think there's still no air traffic control around, so that's fine. So Calmo 2 Charlie takes us to revap, which is fine. And then there's a discontinuity to Jicket. Let's. Whoa! Right, autopilot off, flight directors off, and we're descending. Oh, it's already cleared. That's a shame. There was a TCAS RA. Didn't even get a traffic alert for that one. Right, so to recover from this, we'll raise the nose gently, get ourselves back. I know that probably 2.5 was cruising, so level. So let's get us slightly into a climb. Let's say set 4 degrees. Now I'm pointing back the way I came from. Let's put the flight directors on. Vertical speed 700, heading 1 FD2. That looks pretty reasonable. Let's put an autopilot 1. And let's just go to open climb. First climb, open climb, going back up to 340. Yeah, there was a descent, so it has TCAS RAs. How interesting. That must be Dougal getting close behind us. I wonder if I assume he got one as well. There he is, catching up. I should still be doing 7.6. Yeah, we're doing slightly more than decimal 7.6. Yeah, so I didn't know it could do TCAS RAs. That's really interesting. I'd expect a traffic alert first, where it says traffic. But yeah, that's great. What a great feature. The procedure to do that is something I haven't talked about in videos yet. You'll notice I turned off the flight directors. That's a really important part. We want to make sure we get into speed mode. But I think I'll have to say that because that's a whole video on its own. We've lost nav, so let's get ourselves back into nav. There we go. Captain Mateo, mine simply turned into a stone. No rat or ecam, all black. That is interesting. I don't know what that could have been. Dougal said no TCAS for me either. But no, it did come eventually. Simon Wortman, thanks for coming along. A quick basic question: what is the function of the packs, and when do I have to switch them on and off? Thank you. I think we have time for that one. Last one we'll do. So packs, great question. You can see on the overhead panel, they're in the air conditioning section. The Airbus labels everything nicely for us. And we've got pack 1, pack 2. So we have engine bleeds, which take air from the engine and supply it to the aircraft for all sorts of things. And if we go to our bleed page, that's what we can see. So this is the intermediate pressure and the high pressure valves. So they're taking air from the engine. It's very hot. It gets from the compressor stage. It hasn't been burnt yet. It's just been compressed, so it gets hot as it does that. And then it gets fed into the packs, which are up here. It will also be used for the wing anti-ice. So only the outboard slats, so the outboard 3 slats on each wing and the engine nacelles, they all have the ability to be heated with that hot air. As you can see, it comes out the engine's hot. But the packs are the air conditioning packs. So what they do is they take that air and they take it from 160 degrees and then they send it out cold at 3 degrees. And then they get it fed around the cabin and the packs do that. And you'll actually be, it will pressurize pretty much on one pack, but that's not a great situation to be in. But yeah, it simply supplies the air to the cabin like that. So the packs are what provide that air that gets pumped in. And a lot of air is pumped into the airplane all the time as you're cruising along. So yeah, it's that's all they are really. So you could have them on from pushback. You can start the engines and they're automatically turned off for that, and then they automatically turn on. And if you leave them on, so no white lights, they'll just be on all the time, and that's absolutely fine. There are some cases if performance was limiting where you'd need to turn them off for takeoff, because by taking the air out of the engine, it removes some of the thrust. So it could be the case you have to turn them off for takeoff. Thomas Mortimer, have you ever wanted to go up a size to the 330, 350 for real? Well, that'd be lovely. It'd always be nice to try other things and other aeroplanes. very similar, I imagine. I do consider, I have considered the 350 for X-Plane. That's one thing I've been looking at. It's a shame there's no good 380s because I really like flying as a passenger on the 380. SOPS is saying that the TCAS code changed. Maybe Zebo and Toliss haven't updated. That could be interesting. Dougal didn't get one. Yeah, that's interesting. Thanks for dropping back. Pavage, no, I didn't know the TCAS was simulated either. And Dougal's gone to 320. Richard V nearly collided with a Cessna AI. Yeah, absolutely. So that's good to know that it does work like that. So I can see Dougal there. 2,000 feet below behind us. So yeah, that'll be fine. Right, let's get this arrival sorted. I was mid task and I've got myself all distracted. Right, it's a Calmo arrival. Let's see if we can pick a simpler one. Takes us to Varap. Okay, let's try and set that one up. I think that'd be better. So that is a Calmo flying a DME ARC. That's interesting. I've been asked about the ARCs before as well. So I'll be curious to see how the Toliss does it. RS28 Zulu. Calmo 2 Golf. Bravo Charlie Golf. So many arrivals. There we go. Via, please be there. No, it's not. That's frustrating. So it doesn't work via Varap. Let's see what it does work via. Oh no, that doesn't look very. I don't think I've got that right. Let's get rid of that. Yeah, I did have a look at a few of these. I want to do this. So the Nate 2 Alpha, but it doesn't really come in via Calmo. Calmo goes straight to T-Glow and then Revap. And then maybe we can connect it from there. RS 028. I think T-Glow is on the start of the RS. Okay, that's what we're going to do. So let's do RS 28 Zulu. We'll stick with the arrival we had, the Calmo. The 2 Alpha goes out there, I see. So let's do the 2 Charlie. Sorry for this, guys. It must be interminable watching me scroll through arrivals, and then via T-Glow. Here we go. How does that work? Does that work? And we can just press airport and it'll jump. There we go. That's better. Straight in. Good. So we don't have to spend too much time waiting around. Right. Let's do our hats then. So that was the flight plan page set up. The RadNav page. Actually, something we will check from the flight plan page. It's going to be the MSAs. They're going to be quite high as we come into Calmo. We've got all this terrain around to the north. So we'll need to be careful. They're probably visual. So you'd have your en route chart ready to get your MSA out here. It says flight level 90 after Calmo. Let's check that the box has got that loaded up correctly. Calmo 93 and then Barmo at 85. I'm going to put in, I think it needs to be 90 at Barmo. Let's hope that this works. It doesn't always seem to work. No, it makes me do it like here. But there we go. Let's put in 90 just to stop it. Oh, why is that an error? It may think I'm too high to do that. So sometimes you'll do this, or you'll check the coding, and because there's a strong tailwind or something, the Airbus will simply say that it won't make it. The speed limits are too hard, so you'll have to be prepared to use speed brakes or have some other method to get down. Oh dear, what is going on in the messages? I'm very sorry, guys. Okay, let's get that sorted out. Hoping I can do that in time. Sorry about that, guys. That's a bit annoying. We'll see how this works. My FPS are reducing. Oh, and then we've had... sorry, guys. That is frustrating. Let's get rid of that. Okay, hopefully that stops now. And we'll get that frame rate back up. Come on, Airbus. Come on, simulator. You can do it. Have we managed? Ah, it's disconnected. We'll reconnect. Why has it dropped so much? It looks like my stream... Stand by, guys. We're having a few problems here with the stream. I'll be back shortly. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. I'm really sorry. Someone has been saying a lot of things, I think. Yeah. Okay. Right. I think we've got the situation a bit better. Yeah, that's frustrating. Okay. Right. Looking back. Soppy says, don't get the 350 now. There'll be an update to version 2. Good stuff. Yeah. Sorry about all those messages. I don't think it was the bot actually going mad. I think someone was doing their best, and I haven't set up the bot properly. So I'll have to have a go at sorting that out better. Dougal knows them, yeah. So it does look like we might need some moderators to sort this out, because that's something more than I can do all at once. Tango Delta, seen them stream, troll other streamers. There you go. Richard V. Yeah, absolutely. Swap yes. Yeah, no. I think that we had a lot of messages submitted there, which is why the bot got upset with it. Now, how are we doing on frame rate? Why have we got stuck down here? Let me sort this out. I'm really sorry, guys. Especially to Dougal. It looks like something has clogged up the frame rate, and it's just not having it now. So I can't get it back up to the right frame rate to enable. Let's try an outside view. It just seems to have dropped down to 20 frames a second, and that's it. So I'm not able to set up the what's going on here? Not able to set up VATSIM again. It won't affect the flights. We'll carry on with the stream, but yeah, that's a bit of a shame. Okay, right, let's carry on then. Sorry about that interruption, guys. Right, so we got our arrival. We're heading straight in, and we want to be careful with our flight levels as we come down because of that terrain. RadNav, so we're going to do our circling today. So I've got the ILS. It will be tuned eventually. I'm just going to fly the ILS Zulu initially down to course 286, 109.3. So we check that later. As we know, the Toliss seems to tune it late. Progress page, we're going to have LIMJ, and then I'm going to put in the other runway. So we're going to circle onto the other end. And we go to our airport briefing. So we're going to come down, and then we're going to break off, circle round out to sea, and then land on runway 10. So I'm just going to put that in there. Performance page, let's get that weather into there. Right. Frame rate's coming back up. We may be in luck here. It's something my computer does. The processor gets clogged up when Streamlabs is trying to do too many clever things and all this at once. So I do apologise for that in the comments if you've had that. Thanks, Dougal. Yeah, please let me know if you know what's going on. Tom is saying the next update will have improvements for vertical FMGS functions. That's fantastic. I really hope so. Swap ES, reduce the settings. Yeah, I would. I'm worried about the risk of that causing a crash of some sort, which I've had before. So it tends to be a feature of the YouTube streaming happening at the same time. 160 at 7. So I put in that weather. There's that easterly wind or southeasterly wind. You could definitely get away with landing there if your performance allowed it. Some airplanes have a 10 knot tailwind limit. Some have a 15 knot tailwind limit. But that's good stuff to circle anyway. It could be that they just choose to do that as it is. And what we're going to do differently is we're going to put in the circling minima. Now you guys do tell me if you don't want to see a circling. It's a little more time consuming, but just a bit. But we're going to go down here, circling restrictions. We're circling to land, not authorized north of the runway. Well, that would make sense because if we try and circle to the north, we'll have all these mountains in the way. But I'm going to put 1360 in there. Now this could go very, very wrong. I could embarrass myself. So that's 1360 MDA because that's going to be our circling minimum. I don't want to go below that whilst I circle. We'll do a config 3 landing. We're landing with a headwind. Look at that VAP, very fast. Oh, that is fast actually. Let's go. Oh, it doesn't seem to make much difference. We'll do a config 3 landing. that should still work out for flying maximum knots to circle. Yeah, 180, absolutely. So we'll do config 3, and I'll put that up here. The reason is that's going to make it simpler for us as we do our circle. For the go-around altitude, well, initially we're expecting just to fly this go-around for the ILS procedure. So turn left as soon as practical, maximum 200 knots, so we'll need to leave some flap out. To join and follow the radio 182, climb to 3,000 feet and proceed to Exito, holding. Climb to 3,000 feet, there it is, the magic number. 3,000 feet goes in there. I'm going to reduce these now. It's 1510, so I'm going to do 1,010 and 1,010 to make it a bit simpler. Actually, I'm going to change my mind on that. I'm going to completely change my mind now. And I'll tell you why a little bit later. Let's put it back to the standards. So 1510. If we had to go around from a circling, which is something I didn't cover in my circling tutorial, we need to follow this missed approach procedure effectively. You could agree another one. Some airports will have procedures for a circling go-around, but we're expected to basically head out south and go to this hold. They don't want us flying back up this ILS or using the missed approach for the other runway. We sailed past our top of descent point. Let's get ourselves down then. Let's start off with flight 100s. We know that 90 is our first restriction. A little bit high, absolutely. So if I go to managed, and you'll see here, there's a risk of doing this at this high, and that's that we might find that that nose drops too much. Let's try reconnecting to VATSIM, now that our frame rate seems to have recovered a bit. Just a bit, but it is still better. Quite a lot of terrain around here, and I have special scenery for Genoa, so maybe that hasn't helped. Maybe we'll see Dougal behind us. So enter the desk data, that's absolutely fine. And there's a risk that this number will increase with the Mach number, because to maintain the same Mach as we descend, we'll have to increase our speed, our indicator speed. So eventually it will transition, but it looks okay actually. It looks like we will be with a bit of buffer, because it's possible that it would overshoot that number there. And down we come. Excellent. So we're going to fly down here. Yep. And then if we have a missed approach, we'll have to turn onto radio 182 and head out to Exito. So what I'm going to do is just draw out some fixes. So let's have, it's the radio 182 based on the Sierra Echo Sierra VOR. 182 radial. And if I go to plan and zoom out, I can see it there. And then in the next one, I'm going to put in Exito. And that way, even if I activate the secondary flight plan, I should be able to see the hold with a 3 mile radius, see the ring. I should be able to see the hold. But now for the circling, I'm going to copy over the active, and it has all the weather and so on in it. But in the secondary, I'm just going to change the arrival. And I'm not going to have any ILS, I'm just going to have runway 10. I'm going to clear everything else out. So perhaps could have done this in a better way. Oh dear, yeah, that's a little bit more time consuming than I expected. I don't want any points, just want the CF. So there's CI28, that's no good, we're not going via that. And hopefully if I look on the ND, what have we got? CF and then LIMJ 10. So that will hopefully, well, why has that got 265 at the CF? I'm not entirely sure. Oh, sounds like we got a subscriber, so maybe that is working. It does seem to vary. But yeah, so I basically want the runway and then the center fix, and that's about it. There it is, yeah, CF is there. Excellent. So that's in for the other side, and that means that it will have ground speed mini available to us to use. Ground speed mini is something else I haven't talked about much, but it's useful to have. So if there's a big wind change on final approach, the ground speed mini will adjust to make sure your ground speed is constant at your VAB. Excellent. So how are we doing on the profile? Looks like we're coming back down. I'm sorry, I missed the subscriber if that's what I missed. So thank you very much for subscribing. Whoever that was, feel free to type into the chat and I'll give you a shout out. But there we go. Sometimes when landing, Thomas is saying that they usually in winds, the VAP bug on the PFD moves up and down or doesn't go to the speed on the MCDU unless I hard code it. Is it normal? It is absolutely normal, and that's ground speed mini, which is exactly what I'm talking about. And it's a great feature. It has its issues at times, but that is accounting for the winds changing. So the idea is the engines will keep a roughly similar power on final approach, and also your ground speed will stay similar. So if there's a big loss of wind compared to the ground, then the airplane will have that energy ready in it. If you have a strong headwind on final approach and it's light wind on the ground, as you descend, you'll find that the airplane is losing energy. So ground speed really gives you more energy in the first place by increasing your speed. Let's go for the low auto brake as well. Pavel, how can I send you a file for Lua that increases FPS due to not loading objects which are far? I like it. It may help with the computer. And yeah, thank you very much, Pavel. That's very kind. Someone's mentioned 3J FPS already, so I'll definitely have to give that a go to see how it works. Captain Gio, thank you for subbing. Apologies for missing that. I've had a few FPS issues so far on the flight, which is what's led to this situation. Right, how are we doing? Jonathan Barber, do you also stream on Facebook? No. Dougal McTavish is saying hello to Gio. Yeah, another regular in the community, clearly. Run Pilot Aviation, what do you mean? Are you asking for raw data for the ILS? For this one, we're going to do it using the automatics because we're going to do the circle. So how high are we? We're getting back onto the profile. Let's have a look compared to the threshold. 70 miles to go, 20,000 feet. So we need 60 plus the circling. Yeah, that seems pretty reasonable. We'll let it keep descending. Don't want to get high. So the plan is we're going to fly down this ILS about 100 feet before, and this will be familiar to anyone who's seen my circling video. So at 1460, and I'll swap to the FO seat for this, we're going to push to level off, and we'll be in track FPA. We'll be gear down in config 3 as we do that. So we come down the ILS, gear down, config 3, and then that's effectively our landing configuration for today. Then 100 feet early, we'll push level off, and that way we'll be level by or before 1360. If we're visual with the runway, we're going to turn and follow our tracks. So we're going to make our left turn, heading away from the runway, 45 degrees for 30 seconds. So we're going to roll left onto 241, and then we'll do that for 30 seconds. And it's 30 seconds from when the wings go level. And then we'll start our timer. Then we'll turn downwind after that 30 seconds, activate the secondary flight plan, get ourselves a beam to threshold. Then we time 3 seconds per 100 feet. So from 1360, we're going to do about 39 seconds. Once we've done 39 seconds, we'll start a right turn, 25 degrees of bank. And you wouldn't start descending until you're visual with the runway. It's going to be hard to replicate that in the simulator. And that's where there's a high chance of me messing this up. So we'll have to see what happens as we head round the turn. I may have to start the turn early. Start the descent early during the turn, which in real life you'd be able to see the runway, but sadly it's a little bit tricky to get that right in the simulator. And that's the plan. Let's check we've got the right QNH loaded in. So yeah, for Run Pilot ILS raw data, absolutely. I'll definitely do that in a future video, and I have done a tutorial on it if you're looking for that. But if you're just looking for me to do it in the stream, I think for today I won't do that just because it would invariably mess up my circle as usual. Although that would be a great excuse, and I'm sure I'll find another way to mess it up anyway. Adrian Burke's asking, on the approach chart like this one, there's an altitude between waypoints. I assumed that to a minimum altitude. Is that correct? Yes, absolutely. So as we can see here, from T-Globe, 4,000 feet to 18 GSE. 18 GSE, I can descend to 3,370. I mean, I'm not sure why, because you could stay at 4 and then set to 12. But yeah, there you go. Yeah, and on the arrival chart, these are at 6,500 is the minimum on this chart. 90 is the minimum to Barmo. After Barmo, you could descend. Important to get those right because they could be procedural, so it could be because of traffic beneath you. Let's keep our descent going so I don't miss that. We want 90 for now. It could be important that there's traffic beneath you, or it could be that aircraft are departing, or it could be for terrain. And I'd imagine in this case that terrain is quite a likely issue. As we can see, the MSA is 6,000 feet. So I can go below that if I'm following the procedure, but I can't go below that and just start flying around over the water. That wouldn't be very safe. Right, looking visual. I'm assuming Genoa is now on the nose. Let's go back to constraint. Let's get the passengers starting to get strapped in. Otherwise, all looking good. Outside air temperature is already 13, so it's down on the total air temperature. If that was below 10 or at 10, I'd put the engine anti-ice on if we entered cloud or moisture or rain. But as it's not, we don't need to. Even though the static temperature, so that SAT is static air temperature, it's quite cold, -4. Total air temperature, TAT, is the temperature. It's warmer because it's based on the actual air hitting the airplane and being compressed, which obviously heats it up. Adrian Burke, no problem at all. That's why we're doing it. Hopefully this can be useful to you guys. Right, here we go then. So lovely, really not too bad scenery out here. And I should probably announce my intentions on Unicom at some point. Is Dougal still with us? Are we still on VATSIM? I think we are. 1228. But I'm not sure where Dougal is compared to us. 1 hour 6. It's been a long flight. Thank you for sticking with it, guys. It's unusual for us to have a flight this long so far on these streams. They've been much quicker normally. Good time to have the terrain chart up. Wouldn't be surprised if you couldn't see any thunderstorms. You might consider both having it. It says 9,000. Yeah, that would be a good thing. We should really get the transition level from the 80s, but it's not here. If I find the transition altitude, which would be on a departure chart, that might help. But I'm imagining it's probably pretty close. As there's terrain that's so high, usually that means the transition level is raised. So it says 60, so there you go. So we'll do flight level 90 for now. And then descend down to Tiglo. And at Tiglo, as we said, we are okay to be 4,000 feet at Tiglo. Here it's 6,500 to Tiglo. So actually 6,500 feet, that's what we'll go down to. And then after Tiglo, we can go to 4,000 feet. And then we'll carry on with the ILS. Excellent. Doing okay for fuel. Loads of fuel, 6 tons. I'm not entirely sure what I do wrong with the flight planning, but I always end up like this. Dougal had to leave. No problem at all, Dougal. After all, I dropped out first. But thank you very much for joining us as far as you did. And Slam Cannon says Dougal is everywhere. Yeah, Dougal's a very, very active contributor to the community. Absolutely. Smooth flying. Yeah, absolutely. Richard V is enjoying the flight. Excellent. I'm glad you are. It's slightly different format to what we've done before. And here we go. It's trying to decelerate, so it should really just keep descending. I'm not entirely sure why it's doing that. But as we know, 90 is our limit, so I'm quite happy for it to not descend further here. Here, Morris. Oh, great. I'm glad you guys are enjoying it. Keeping control of the TV. Excellent. Fantastic. Run Pilot Aviation, 10,000 foot flow. Yeah, that's a good point. Where's the checklist gone? That's a shame. So we're going to put on those because we're going to use them for the first part of this to fly down that RS. We're going to put on those landing lights. Leave the others until we put the gear out. Passenger signs are already on. And just going to check GPS primary accuracy high. That's all working out. That's more for a non-precision approach, but still worth having a look at this point. Speed, and that's star, so we've leveled off nicely at 9. After Barmo, 6.5, so 6.5. Oh, wrong way. There we go. 6.5. And let's do that in vertical speed. Start to get this under control. So 6,500, 1,500 feet per minute. Let's activate the approach phase. Config 3, it's all set. We've got our minima, and that's all coded. I'm just going to double check the secondary, how that's looking. Oh, I'm not sure why there's that line there. That bothers me slightly. I'm not entirely sure if I've done something wrong. I just don't know. Let's try again. Let's just put in an arrival for runway 10, insert, with nothing else. I didn't want all this other stuff though. That looks better. We'll see. It's not the end of the world if it doesn't, because we're going to be hand flying it anyway. There's our missed approach. So if I end up going around from the other side, I'll turn right and get myself onto that radial out to Exito. How are we doing for height? 7,000 feet, 25 miles. Yeah, we're probably getting a little bit high, so let's keep that coming down. Start using some speed brake. And now we know after Tiglo, down to 4,000. And onto the QNH. 4,000's in there. And let's check that QNH again. It was 1006 today, slightly lower. Right, let's get some speed brake out. Let's get this airplane down. 20 miles, 6,000 feet. So we're okay for height, but we're probably a little bit fast. So we've got a little bit of that to sort out. Distance-wise, 22 miles. I'd expect to see some sort of ILS indications by now. Slight surprise we haven't. Adrian Burke saying, yeah, the transition level can be very low. I don't know of any lower ones than that. Amsterdam's one of the rare ones because of the lack of terrain. Thomas Mortimer, is it correct that only autobrake low and medium can be selected in flight and max only on the ground? Absolutely. Max is for rejected takeoffs. You wouldn't use it for landing. It would not be a sensible way to do it. Okay, let's start configuring. So flaps going to 1. There's our ILS starting to come in. So I'm going to pull that. Don't need to be descending that fast now. So thrust idle open descent. Manage speed. So we're reducing the speed. How are we doing on weight? 76. Yeah, we are really heavy. It's going to be really interesting, actually. That could be pretty tight. We shall see how this works. Now here's interesting. It's quite hard for me to put out flap 2 because the speed limit for the flap 2 is shown with those orange equal signs. I could do it now, but what could be better, because I could go into this cloud and find the speed increases. So I can actually reduce that to 200 knots, no problem. I'm below the S-speed. I wouldn't want to maneuver too much here, but that's absolutely fine for what I'm doing, flying straight in an ILS. And now I can put up flap 2 quite comfortably. Then go back to manage speed. Let's go to vertical speed, arm the approach. Vertical speed 500, out, glide slopes armed. And now we'll start coming back on the speed. Yeah, very high approach speed. Thomas Mortimer, yeah, the Boeings have lots of settings. Yeah, they do. I think the 380 has some cleverer settings for auto brake, but the short haul 320 aircraft don't particularly. The 380 can do all sorts of things, including you can set brake to vacate, and it will choose the appropriate amount of braking for the exit that you've asked it to do. It's very clever. We've got some traffic climbing towards us. I better transmit on Unicom, or we could get ourselves into a TCAS here. Genoa traffic, Alitalia 215, ILS runway 28, currently 13 miles for circling runway 10. Looks like they're hopefully turning away. Someone's lining up on 10. There we go, we've leveled off. I've done it again, speed brakes. Now, how have I seen, how many people have, there we go, master warning for that. I was wondering why the engines were revving so high to do that. Very bad. I must get a physical thing in the room that I can use to remind me of that. Glide slope star. There we go. And we're going to set 3,000 feet for our go-around altitude. Oh, there we go. I'm just going to click that over to 1,000 again. So, here we go. The final stage of the approach. I'm visual with Genoa, so it's looking good for our circle. Sounds like someone was just lining up. Yeah, there's a Chanex on the runway. That's a little bit frustrating because we're going to have to circle. Let's see. Alitalia 215 to Genoa traffic on the final approach, runway 28 to circle runway 10, currently 10 miles from runway 28. Thanks very much. Perfect. So someone's going to sit on the threshold. That's absolutely ideal. It's very kind of them. So we're now descending with the ILS 10 miles out. I won't slow down anymore. That will only make their life more difficult, or they'll have to sit around waiting for us. Nearly there, guys. Thank you all for sticking it out. I hope you've enjoyed it so far. We've been going for it, an hour and a half. It's one of our longer ones. Right, let's move over. This is going to be better because I would like to be able to see the runway as I come around and fly the approach. It's more useful for me to sit on this side of the airplane because obviously we're turning right all the way around. So the next stage is we're going to configure to gear down and flap 3 before our minima. Once we've done that, we can wait to about 1460 and then push to level off and carry on down. Let's get the terrain up on this side. And as I said, all sorts of things could happen here. This is a bit of an experiment. We are quite heavy as well, so I'm curious to see how that works out. There's our radio altimeter, so that's good. We've got the correct QNH, 7 miles out. Let's configure then. So gear's going to come down. Flaps to 3. And now we're set up for landing. Excellent. They can go on. So next step, we're waiting for 1460, or maybe even a little bit earlier because the weather's nice. I don't need to be exact at the minimum. There's no point pushing it. Of course, if you level off high, it can make your life more difficult later on. Oh yeah, speed brakes, great. And that's where the Airbus is fantastic with these memos. cabin lead their ding. So we're all ready to land, and here we go. Hi, True Simulation. Thanks for coming along, Captain Mateo Chewy. Yeah, I absolutely love the Genoa and the scenery we've got here. Right, concentrate. I must concentrate. So we said 1500 feet, I think, would be a good time to do it today. So I'm going to go to track FPA to get ready. 1500 feet. Push to level off, FPA to 0. Am I visual? Yeah, I am absolutely visual. So it's time to get ready to circle. I'm going to go left to 241. So let's do that. 241. And pull. I'm confident we're going to stay in the circling area while we do this. We're about 40 feet high, so that's no big deal. Oh, very unusual to be flying the simulator in this seat. Once the wings go level, I'll start my timer, and I'm going to time for 30 seconds. Got a crosswind, so that's going to actually make that final turn slightly more difficult. So we'll see. This could be really quite tough to get in here. We'll see how this works. Have to do a serious bank. Okay, start the chrono, wings level. And we'll do this for 30 seconds as we head off downwind. Yeah, this crosswind, something you'd be aware of, that wind's going to be blowing us into the terrain. Also, if we do go around, we have to be careful that the airplane doesn't just going to go around track and fly us straight ahead in whichever direction we're facing. We need to keep that turn coming. So yeah, a few things to consider. Okay, they're taking off. That's absolutely fine. There's 30 seconds. Going on to my downwind track now of 284. Restart the clock. Flight plan. Secondary. Activate secondary. Okay, looking reasonable. We've got that final in. That's going to work out nicely for our sequencing and our ground speed mini, because it's sequenced already to the runway, so that's good. Now you can see here, that's pushing us in slightly. I'm tempted to, there we go, now it's turning left, so that track keeps us level. That's the magic of flying the Airbus in track and FPA. Now I need to look out for the threshold. Alitalia 215, downwind runway 10. And there goes the Chanex. I think that was Chanex, CVX 145. Once we've been the threshold, you could draw the line in as well to help you inside. If you struggle to see out, you could do another radial from LIMJ 10 and then do the 90-degree angle cut there. So here we go. I'm going to do 39 seconds timing. I think it's somewhere there. Let's start the clock. And here we go, guys. Wish me luck. Let's see if we can get this right. 39 seconds. I'm going to disconnect the autopilot. I think with that wind, we'll need to do at least 25 degrees of bank straight away, and we have to start our descent. But in real life, you'd wait till you could see the threshold and identify it. If we were landing flat full, we would only put up flat full once we've started our descent. Okay. Last 10 seconds to go. This is very high VAP, back at 150. 37, 38. So autopilot coming off. Flight director's off, starting the turn. We've already got the bird on. Let's get straight to, I think I'm going to start off slightly higher. I'm going to do up to 30 degrees. Should be 25, but I'm just a bit suspicious of that wind. Now we should be flying level, but I would say around here you'd expect to start seeing the threshold. So I'm going to start a shallow descent to get ourselves ready. 500 feet per minute. Let's see how this works out, guys. For the first one, if it's unstable too much, we'll go around. We'll go and try again. Let's keep it coming down. I think we need to keep probably a full rate of descent on here. That little green donut will become useful, but not quite yet. Okay, there's the runway. Probably overcooked that turn a little bit. Let's see how it goes. Keep it coming down. It's that high VAP that's causing us a bit of issues. Okay, 13 feet per minute, probably a bit high. We've got 2 rights, 2 reds, so just shadowing off that bank. Get that rate of descent back to 3 degrees now. We're on the profile. Oh, bit of a glitch there.
10.
Oh, thank goodness. 2 whites, 2 reds. Lights are on. Looking good. Keep that 3 degrees, which the bird will show us nicely. Let's see if I can land from the right-hand seat as well. Wind slightly from the right, so I've got to get the nose through. Get back onto 2 whites, 2 reds. There it is. That's a bit of an overcorrection. Always resetting our datum, so we know 800 feet per minute is going to be roughly right for us. Oh dear. Look at that, going straight to the right-hand side of the runway. Classic. Keep the descent coming. Bit of a high rate of descent, so flaring a little bit early. Idle. Reverses to idle. Let's keep it on the centre line, please. There we go. And rolling out. Low water brake seems to be working quite well. But I'm going to take over manual brakes. Lots of weight and energy. That would probably, in real life, I don't know if the performance would have worked like that. You might have needed medium or max reverse. And here we are on the ground in Genoa. Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, that seemed to work out okay. A bit of a challenging approach to do that one. It's quite fun. I hope it made sense. It was, as I've done before in my other video. Let's go to forward idle now. We're back at our taxi speed. And I'm going to jump back to the left-hand seats. We're going to turn left here. Max wingspan 36 meters. That's great. The 320 short haul family is less than 36 meters. Brakes hot. And the speed brake ECAM. Yeah, that speed brake ECAM shouldn't come up now. I don't know why it does that. That's just a little glitch there. I should have probably told Unicom we're on final approach. And that's okay. So what we'll do is we'll go up and park, and then we'll have a look at the replay. I'm just going to bring it to a stop while we check where we should park, unless somebody knows which airport we should go to. Which stand we should go to. Captain Matteo. I will absolutely grab some pesto and focaccia. Definitely. Italian food, obviously, is absolutely delicious. Right, we've come off on Golf, so I'm going to go straight ahead, Mike, and then 405, somewhere on the terminal. I think we can treat our passengers to the terminal, because no one else is here. Strobe lights off, landing lights off. Tax lights on. Let's get that APU up and running. Get rid of the landing flap 3. Disarm the speed brakes. Temperature outside is 20 degrees, so they can go straight to 0. If it was hotter than 30, we'd go to 1. Oh, it wants me to restart the chronometer. I'm not sure why. Maybe it wants that side done. Oh, we've done that. Strobe lights to off. Well, I don't think you would do that. You'd probably be fine with strobe lights at auto. There's no reason to turn them off because in auto they will stay off on the ground anyway. Landing lights are off. Yeah, nose light. And then it says pack 1 off. Yeah, you could do. That would save a bit of fuel, as we said, in these aircraft, but not in the more modern ones. Okay, APU starts. Let's have a look. Where are we going? So I do actually have scenery for Genoa, as you probably noticed, which is why it's looking a little bit swisher than some of my other arrivals I've done. Yeah, so looking for one of these stands over here. There's a BP truck. Maybe we can go to that stand and be ready to refuel and head out. But don't worry, guys. We're not actually going to. We're not going to fly away again. I won't force you to sit through it anymore. But thank you very much for joining us for this far and on such a long flight. And we've made it just in time for the sunset. Here's a graphics issue that I don't know if you guys are having, where it seems to happen in Vulcan for me, where the mountains go sort of see-through. Quite common on the ground. Okay, let's turn right into 405. That looks like a good stand with a jet bridge. Right, the lights can go off for the ground crew. We don't want to blind them. And that's talking about before takeoff, so yeah, we're not doing that one now. And in we go. Brakes are hot, so let's get those fans up and running. Yeah, 520. Probably today, this sort of weight landing on the runway like that, yeah, would be a day that hot brakes would be a certain concern, definitely. Ah, dear. Needed to definitely wait longer before I did that. Ah, excellent. It's got it's got the. Let's see if it's going to be accurate. These boards, yes, fantastic. They don't work quite like that in real life. They sort of fade between the two things. They're really clever things. Tom Scott has an excellent video on them on YouTube if you're interested. So it wants me further left. So the problem with these in real life is it only shows you where your seat is. It won't account for the body of the airplane, whereas this one seems to be accounting for the airplane as well. But that's great, and it knows I'm in a 321. X-plane is very clever, isn't it? That's fantastic. Really impressed. I don't think I want to be left, but there we go. I think I want to be somewhere here. Oh, this is hard. You'd be amazed how much you have to concentrate doing this. And the brakes, when they're hot, are very grabby, so they're very sensitive to any sort of input. Look at this. This is excellent. First time I've seen this. Oh, too much. Unfortunately, I've only got one button for the brakes. Let's set them. So they're either on or off. But there we go. Brakes are set. APU is available. I think we can shut down the engines. Off they go. They can go back there. They can go off. And M1s can reduce. That is us here in Genoa. Guys, thank you very much for joining us. And now we can go and have another look through. Just have a quick check through the comments. Yeah, same problems with Vulcan. That's good to know. I'm glad it's not just me. Yeah, this is the Aerosoft Genoa scenery. I think it was on sale on Steam a little while ago. Goodbye, Geordie. Thanks for joining us. And the Sledge, thanks for coming along. Luke, if you turn off clouds, it will disappear. Okay, that's interesting. It could be related to that. Ian Morris, glad you enjoyed it. Thanks very much for coming along. Dougal, thank you for joining us. Excellent. Adrian Burke, when going track FPS, doesn't track compensate for the wind? It does. You're absolutely right. It does account for the track, for the wind as well. So more my concern was during the turn, I could get blown through the centre line. So I wanted to make sure we didn't have that risk. So it seemed to work out okay. Right. Now this is where the simulator crashed. So let's see if we can handle it. Fuel track and everything. This is great. Alt R and disconnect from VATSIM. That's no problem. And let's rewind. So I think we can play it from, let's scoot ahead here. So here we were coming down the ILS. Lovely afternoon to do it. Captain Matteo Giuri, thank you very much for joining. Speak to you later, absolutely. Run pilot, the raw data should be what you were looking for, absolutely. Smooth flying, thank you very much. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Swap ES as well. Guys, you're all regulars. Thank you so much for coming along and supporting the stream and the channel. I'm glad it's been fun for you today. And what we'll do is we'll jump into actually, we don't need to see all of this. Let's go. This will be the passenger view, as Fly24 was saying. So it's quite fun, yeah, to be a passenger for a circling approach. And you'll see us whiz round the turn here, getting that bank in. Fantastic. Yeah, there it is. I'm sure there's local pilots who must fly into Genoa all the time who are very used to doing this. And there we go. I didn't see what the landing rate showed up as on the stream. The stream software does that separately, but it does seem to have a little bit of delay in it. And here we go, final approach. It is fun having scenery, so I must admit I will keep an eye out for any other good sceneries. I'm trying to get some freeware sceneries loaded up. Matteo, hello from Sicily. Thank you very much for joining us, Matteo. Hello, thank you for coming along. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm sure we'll find more Alitalia routes to fly or routes across Italy. There we go. I always like approaching over water. Seeing water out the windows until the last second when you see the tarmac is always a fun feeling as a passenger. And there we go. We seem to get away with that one. Let's see if we can go to... we'll just do a quick flyby view, because why not? We can't resist it. You'll see me wobbling to the right of the centre line. Could have probably got some more drift off there. There we go. And those shipyards in the background. And that's what happens if you don't get the drift off. As the main wheels get grip, you'd start to get taken to one side. Right, guys, thank you very much for joining us for the stream. I hope soon to be doing more streams, and as I said, there's a Discord available if you guys would like to join in, have any chat, post any screenshots, things like that. Let's put ourselves back on stands. Otherwise, that's all for today, so thank you very much for joining us. As always, keep safe. We'll see you again in another video very soon, or another live stream indeed. So thank you very much for joining us. Bye-bye.